lovelies, today I'll be reading Chapter 6 of Colours of Obsession by Bubbly Ship. I know, it's been a while since I've posted. I'm sorry. I just haven't had motivation to do it. Before I get started, just a quick note from me. My dog's in the room, so if there might be a random bit where I stop recording and it might be noticeable, it's because my door's shut and I have to let her out if she wants to leave. I don't think she will. But otherwise, I'm going to get into it. Here is the summary of this chapter. Izuku's home now. I'm sure it'll go smoothly. Izuku didn't sleep much that night. He was too busy trying to battle away the capture weapon firmly wrapped around him like a viper, and he swore that the more he struggled, the more it tightened. It was only after he was struggling to feel blood flow to his arms that he stopped, and forced himself to relax so that he wouldn't risk any harm to himself for a meaningless endeavour. All it took was one long, hard look around the dark room to realise there was no way in hell he was going to be able to escape tonight. Not while he was more equatable to an earthworm than a person with arms. Izuku really should have kept his mouth shut when Present Mike was offering to untie him. Then kept his hands to himself until he was able to make an escape when they both weren't in the room. He might have stood a chance if he had his phone, the very phone that was resting in a shattered mess in an alleyway. In the alleyway he was taken from the moment Eraserhead saw it poking out of his pocket. Either way, Izuku knows that attacking them up front is a recipe for disaster. Present Mike and Eraserhead are both top-tier villains, and even All Might struggled with. Present Mike had a publicised fight with All Might 4 years back, and it ended in a draw against All Might, the one-hit hero. Present Mike was able to use his quirk to force All Might to save civilians instead of hitting him, then hit him from behind before booking it. The villains Izuku always thought were more terrifying were the ones who knew how to get away, not the villains who stood and monologued, or the ones who were so certain they would be the big bad evil guy to defeat All Might. No, it was the villains who knew their limits, but more importantly, the limits of the heroes. That was Present Mike. He was a louder man in his fights, sure, but he knew when to call it quits and how to get a clean escape and hit when needed. In Eraserhead's fight with All Might, it was never confirmed if one did happen, but when the two of them were in the same area, All Might mysteriously was gone for 3 weeks before he was back in hero work again, with a fresh new scar on his jawbone, which is terrifying. All Might can be bested by Eraserhead, and even be injured by him. The very same man who has Izuku tied up in his guest bedroom. Fantastic. What the hell even is Eraserhead's quirk? Izuku, now that he spent several hours back to back with the man, knew that the glowing red eyes and raised hair were most certainly parts of his quirk. Was he doing something subtle to Izuku when he used it on him? Maybe some sort of different form of Hitoshi's quirk that used vision instead of questions? Izuku wasn't sure. Even if he was super confused and tired, he didn't feel particularly different. It might be some type of quirk with a second need for activation that he simply didn't use just yet. Izuku spent the night trying to detail out the room as best as he could through the shadows. Eventually, sleep grasped him in its bitter little claws and forced him to pass out on the admittedly comfortable bed. Spending several nights in a row barely sleeping will do that to you. When he wakes up, still tied to the bed and tucked in like a child, he's just as unhappy as when he fell asleep. Especially since he's woken up by a grinning Present Mike, who is likely a morning person by the way he eagerly helps Izuku sit up and brush the hair out of his face. "Good morning," he practically sings out, as if imitating a Disney princess who could sing forth cute animals to invade his bedroom at a moment's notice. Hisashi, the man Izuku refused to call Pa, no matter what was running his fingers through Izuku's hair as he watched Izuku wake up. He was wearing the sort of grin only a morning person could at such an hour. Izuku never really understood Hitoshi's protests of their school until now. Izuku couldn't imagine waking up this early daily after getting next to no slumber. Poor Hitoshi. Izuku nearly snaps at the fingers near his face as President Mike wipes at the corners of his eyes. But by the time the thought crosses his mind, the kidnapper, by association, has already drawn his hand away from Izuku's range of chomping. Smart man. Lucky bastard. I wanted to wake you up before we did anything today. You need a break from that capture scarf, not to mention some clean teeth and hair, mister. President Mike wags his finger as if lightly disciplining a child who forgot to brush his teeth. I need a break from being kidnapped, Izuku retorts. The blonde man smiled, a light laugh escaping from him as he patted Izuku's shoulder. Hey, kiddo, I get it. It's a new environment. You're not used to this stuff. And we're strangers trying to bond with you. It's scary. It's new. He gives Izuku a soft smile, like this is all okay. And Izuku can only stare blankly as the villain continues. But just think of it like adoption. We're new, but we just need that time for the new dynamics to settle in. You dig? It'll be awkward, and sure, it'll take some time, but we'll be trying our best to help you settle in as much as possible. Izuku gives the most blank and empty stare he's given in his life. Stone-faced kind of stare, with narrow lips and eyes that gave somehow too much and too little of a shit all at once. Every minute he spends here with these S-class supervillains who seem hell-bent on confusing him to no end were removing brain cells by the dozen. Izuku really needs to get out of here, lest he lose his sanity. Adoption and kidnapping are inherently different things. You dig? President Mike only gives a devious little grin, one that doesn't feel very threatening, but the man could probably uphold with a threat if he so chose. Which Izuku had to force himself to remember as he felt a tremor go up his spine at the expression, cold and chilling all at once. They were choosing to give him mercy. By all accounts, they were letting him be snarky and sarcastic. I actually spent a good 7 years in the fostering and adoption system after my parents were killed in a hero accident. I can say confidently that they really aren't that distinguishable. Oh. Izuku tried to quell down the rising feeling of guilt. Unwarranted and unacceptable guilt. No, an unaccepted guilt. Guilt that didn't belong because he was the victim. That bubbled within his chest as President Mike helped Izuku get up. That was one of the many reasons he didn't report his mother. Izuku is a lot of things, but he is not stupid. Sure, sometimes he slips up on math exams or misconstructs an English sentence, but Izuku isn't baseline in the dirt with his knowledge. He knows things. He knows that fostering is a fucked up system that's ruthless to both quirked and quirkless alike. Quirkless for obvious reasons. Quirked because of their usefulness. If someone has a quirk that would be profitable in the future, plenty of foster parents would fight over guardianship, more acquainted to ownership for the child. That's why Izuku kept his head down about his mother. He's not stupid. He knows his mother's neglectful at best, with weeks going by without groceries in the house and yen left out on the counter for him. Learning to forge his mother's signature since he was in elementary school was a skill that he understood he shouldn't have at that age. Being in the system was an undesirable future, one he avoided by learning the necessary skills to continue his day-to-day life. All Izuku needed was to hit 18, and things would be smooth sailing from there. He could independently sign forms, go wherever he wanted, and simply live. Izuku had been considering moving to Europe for a long time now. The population of quirkless was over 60% in certain smaller countries, so they had more strict policies on equality and opportunities than Japan did. Going to an art school sounded nice over there. Hitoshi's parents would be willing to help co-sign a few loans for him. And it's not like much is holding him back in Japan, other than that small hope he still clung to that just maybe his mother loved him deep down. Except for being kidnapped, now, it seems. Hisashi led Izuku to the bathroom connected to the room, detailing out the shampoo and conditioner he bought as he reminds Izuku to remember to brush and floss like Izuku was 5. I'm not a child, you know. You don't have to remind me to floss, Izuku says while Hisashi shows Izuku where everything is. Everything is too new. Organized. They've been preparing for him to come here, which he's not exactly fond of. It's weird, and more importantly, it's creepy. They have all sorts of things suited to fill the bathroom of a new occupant. Toothpaste, mouthwash, floss, loofahs, and rags, and face wash galore. Clothes his estimated size were placed neatly onto a shelf onto a nearby shelf for after a shower, along with several towels that were clearly around. Well, I have to double check to make sure whatever your parents told you was correct. Some parents never even bothered to make sure kids floss. I had a cavity because of my foster parents. Such vile people, I swear. Hisashi hums out, placing his hands on his hips, and I'd like to make sure you know the basics. Let me know if you have any toothaches, alright? Izuku can only focus on his pounding pulse as Hisashi finally begins to unwrap the damn cloth around Izuku's body. His fingers twitch from excitement, and he's got to keep his feet steady from trying to bolt. Now's really not the time. Prison Mike would probably disable his hearing permanently if he ran. He didn't even know where Eraserhead was, and Izuku could give his all in a fight with Prison Mike, barely get out alive, then round the corner and stumble into Eraserhead. And that was if Izuku even stood a chance against Prison Mike, which he didn't. The best Izuku could try to do to get a weapon was break the mirror, but that would either both of them or just end up injuring him and making him look like an idiot. Izuku already did that once when he assumed Eraserhead would just ditch the chase when he revealed he was quirkless. He'd rather not risk that sort of embarrassment again, which he still doesn't understand. Was it their initial meeting that caused Eraserhead simply not care? He didn't even know Izuku's name before he decided he wanted him. Did Izuku make such an impression that on the man that no later revelation could shake him from his decision? Either way, Izuku detests this situation. He'd rather not get tied up in the scarf again if he can help it. So he'll mostly behave for now and try to keep an eye out for escape opportunities to take. There's an instant, sweeping relief that washes over Izuku as the scarf finally falls from his body, a pressure that he had gotten used to finally disappearing, allowing bliss to take its place. He instantly shakes out his arms, grimacing at how his muscles practically tingle at the movement. A soreness has settled upon his fingers and wrists specifically, one that makes him wince at the sudden use of them again. Prison Mike is holding Izuku's left arm in a second, gingerly twisting the limb in his arms as he inspects the fabric marks indented into his pale skin. There's an unease with someone else touching him that Izuku has to swallow down. Other than Hitoshi and his parents, Izuku wasn't really in contact with other people anymore. You don't really realize what you miss until you experience it again, he supposes. I didn't realize it would leave this many marks, little listener. I'm sorry. What? Oh, wrong person. I didn't realize it would leave this many marks, little listener. I'm sorry. There's a grimace in his voice as Hisashi gently rubs a thumb along the marked skin. A contortion takes over his face, twisting into a guilty, unpleasant expression. It's one Izuku can barely fathom being on a famous villain, much less a famous villain who accidentally left a capture weapon on a prisoner for too long. Maybe next time you try to leave, we'll have to figure out a less hurtful way to keep you here. There won't be a next time. Izuku will be sure to get out and get the fuck away from these crazy men. Then again, did his arguing with them even constitute a first attempt to escape? If that's what warrants scarf time, he's going to have to master the art of shutting the fuck up. How about being grounded instead? Does that sound better, little listener? A blatant stare was given at Hisashi at such an absurd statement. This was seriously delusional. Every moment he spent with them only cemented how absurd this whole situation was, as if perfectly crafted and held to mess with him specifically. I suppose we'll have to figure it out later. Hopefully we won't have to. We just want to give you a good life, Izuku. We promise. One last time, he ruffles Izuku's curls before backing away. Give a shout if you need anything or get hurt. We'll be in the living room when you're done. Without another word, Prison Mike shoots him a pleased attempt at a comforting smile as he closes the bathroom door behind him. Izuku locks it as soon as he's alone, listening to the villain's footsteps as he trails away. No windows to attempt to force open in the bathroom, but at the very least Izuku now has free reign. He likes that. He very much so. Not having bodily autonomy for over 12 hours could very well do that to a guy. A deep search of the bathroom goes by quickly, with less than stellar results to help him escape from whatever apartment they had dragged him to. It's a basic bathroom with essentials that didn't include anything sharp and stable. Izuku sweeps it twice before having to call it quits, hunkered down onto the floor, surrounded by his cascade of chaotically askew things he threw aside in his frantic search, which he cleans because he'd rather not leave a trail after Hisashi just declared his plans to ground Izuku if he tries to escape again, and because he likes to keep things clean if he can help it. Okay. When there's clearly not much else to do at the moment, Izuku finally folds and takes a shower. Warm water was a stranger who was all the welcome to him, one he adored to let into his life once again, after his mum stopped paying the heating bills 2 years ago. Soon enough, Izuku is stretching out his sore muscles as he leaves the bathroom, his hair dripping wet and smelling of lavender. And if he tests the window for a minute or two trying to get the damned thing to budge, no one has to know. What he does settle on, once his fingertips ache from digging into the wood, is that he refuses to stay here for long at all. A few hours. He just needs an opening to slip past them and book it. That's all. Izuku won't stay any longer than he needs to. It's lunchtime already, and Izuku is failing horribly. Not for a lack of trying, but these guys were sharp. Likely it comes with their chosen careers after all. From what he could find, their preparations have led them to sealing every window in the apartment, so no matter how hard he tried, with or without a tool, they wouldn't budge. The only exit was a single apartment door, locked both internally and externally by keycard access that only the two villains had. And as if to spite him, their sleep schedules seemed to oppose one another. Hisashi woke up early, Shota woke up late, grumbling it the whole time. Hisashi went to bed earlier the night before, and Shota stayed up. One of them was almost always awake, and the few hours they probably were sleeping, they had a lock on their door that he knew would keep locked for a stay here. So fuck him, he guesses. Izuku pokes and prods at his fried rice, homemade. That's the fact that makes his chest ache and a weird, uncomfortable feeling settle in his gut. The last meal his mother had made him was katsudon on his 7th birthday, right before she gave up entirely. It was in those few years of stagnation that his mother started to become distant after his quirkless diagnosis, but still had guilt etched into her face whenever she looked at him. That time period was awkward. Izuku constantly trying, but every attempt to try and connect with his only remaining family grows more distant by the second, and as if Inko was slowly drifting out to sea, and Izuku could only watch as she became a small speck of nothingness in the distance. That was his 7th birthday, the birthday that was the cutoff age for any late-forming quirks. If you didn't get a quirk by 7, that was it. You were done. Even with his odd jointed toes and threats of wisdom teeth growing in, his mother and he alike both clung to that unlikelihood that he was only a false negative. It wasn't unlikely. And when It wasn't unlikely, and when he slowly ate the katsudon his mother made him on his 7th birthday, she slipped out into the night, high heels on and makeup she only ever wore for Dad before, on her face for a night out. Their conversations dried up after that. Homemade meals after that became sparse from various sources. If Izuku was able to scrounge up enough money he found scattered about outside, he would go out to a decent local restaurant and order takeout. Sometimes he got food at school when the other kids forgot their lunchboxes and the teachers didn't look his way as he snuck it out. One time, in early middle school, a temporary substitute for an English teacher who gave birth would give him thick homemade bento boxes to bring home for dinner. There was always a look of pity in her eyes, especially after she pulled him aside and apologized she wasn't able to do anything about the bullying or the other teacher's negligence. A good woman, that one, but that was right on the cusp of middle school. She only stayed for 2 months before the original teacher returned. Of course, whenever Hitoshi's parents invited him for dinner, Izuku got homemade food as well. But it's been ages since anyone went out of their way to make him, and only him, a meal at home. To think an S-class villain who kept calling him Little Listener seemed to genuinely care for his well-being went out of his way to tug on a plain white apron and whip up some fried rice for lunch. Not even his mother did that, and the whole time he was asking Izuku engaging questions about himself, as he tried to suggest fun things for them to do. Board game nights, movie nights. Izuku, of course, shuts all these ideas down and is very cutthroat with his responses about his interests. But Hisashi seems to take it in stride. The conversations mostly consist of Hisashi asking him a question, Izuku snapping back at him like some hissy toddler, and next to no progress gets made. Sometime halfway through the conversation, Eraserhead shuffles out of their room and down the hall and moves to lie on the couch. He's clearly not asleep, since his lips seem to uptick whenever Hisashi and Izuku banter. For Izuku, it's more intense verbal backlash, but he knows he's more so just a cute yapping dog than any actual threat. Is this how Burrito feels at Hitoshi's house? Fuck, it's awful, that poor dog. Izuku practically inhaled his fried rice, content that it wasn't poisoned because he watched the whole process. Hisashi throws on the coffee maker for his husband and sneaks over to kiss his forehead before he begins to organize random things around the apartment. It's horribly domestic, and Izuku has to refrain from making exaggerated gagging sounds. He continues to shovel and he continues to shovel fried rice into his mouth, content to quell his starving stomach as he glances over at Eraserhead from the dining room table. Eraserhead was the one who kidnapped him, yet was the one who seemed to be taking a backseat into Izuku's integration. Instead, he's resting his eyes on the couch, looking relaxed, so relaxed and content that it's almost jarring. Izuku just doesn't understand him at all. Oh, these are quirk shoes. Izuku whips his head towards the entryway so fast that he nearly breaks his neck. Going bug-eyed at the sight of Hisashi, crouched over the awkward tossed shoes of Aizawa and Izuku from when they first arrived. His faded but still very red shoes were out on display, a widely not known brand, but a specific brand for quirkless people. Hisashi is staring down at them in his hands, glancing over at Izuku, and his fingers go cold and stiff. This has to be where he dies. Eraserhead might have been fine with it, with his own fucked up logic, but Hisashi wouldn't, and we'll need to keep that in mind when buying new shoes then. That's it? The tension that had been building within Izuku's chest, a singing fear that clutched at his throat, dropped into his gut in a second. Izuku nearly reels on a sudden tonal shift, watching an eject confusion as Hisashi continues to place Izuku's shoes on the same rack as theirs. That's it? No slight sneers, no underhanded insults, just plain acknowledgement and acceptance. Izuku glances down at the food. Fried rice, homemade. He smells of lavender shampoo catered towards curly hair. The dirt stained underneath his fingernails was gone. The paint flecks that always coated his fingertips were finally scrubbed off. A pile of spray paint cans in his new room just for him. An unpleasant feeling bubbles up in his gut that remains of the previous tension, one that makes his fingers tremble with something. Izuku wasn't quite sure yet, but it was strong and vile. Okay. And that was Chapter 6 of Colors of Obsession. Chapter 7 has a summary, and that is Izuku makes a daring plan. So does a new participant. We're nearing the end of this fic. Only 2 more chapters. I really like this chapter. I say that every time, I know. So original, so new of me to say. But I do. It's... I want to call it fluff, but Izuku's still really annoyed, so I don't quite know if it counts. I'd consider it fluff. But, I think so at least. Would I? I really like it. I really like that Izuku gets to have a shower. I mean, like, whoa, that sounds weird. But it makes sense. Like, he's, like, been dirty for so long. Sorry, I keep repeating the same words. Okay. I know I haven't posted in a while, and that's just because I haven't, wanted to edit. I've re-recorded this. This one I've only re-recorded twice, but I have to repost chapter 4 because it's cut off at the end. I think my editing app just, like, cut it off or something. But I have to re-record that, and I need to re-record it for a 3rd time at some point. And I have a test on Friday, so But I expect to get this out by Sunday, I think. I'm kind of hoping to get back to my old schedule of posting on, like, once a week, if I can. Okay, and for the chapter before this one, chapter 5, I know it was 3 days late, or something like that. Saturday, I think I posted it instead of Wednesday. I might be wrong about that. That wasn't my fault. I have a thing with my arm called dystonia, and I forgot that I have issues with it. So when I made my promise to post the next day, I didn't take into account the fact that I still had to edit it, and I have dystonia in one hand, so my dystonia acted up around a knife, and I couldn't really bend my fingers for a few days. Not comfortably. Does the AO3 curse work on Podfic? Because I do post my, like, Podfics onto AO3. But, yeah. So, not my fault. I can't be blamed. Anyways. Oh, and finally, I've been meaning to bring this up so many times now. I, at the moment, have... So, it might be a bit too early, so, just tell me if it is. Oh, no, it's not. It's definitely not. So, I have 96 subscribers at the time of recording this. So, I was wondering what you guys want me to do for 100 subscribers thing. I'm considering at the moment, or I have been, doing all 8 parts of this fic into one. I could do, like, a Q&A or something. A live stream, maybe. I mean, you guys just leave what you want me to do at some point, and I can do it. And if any authors listen to my stuff, and, whoa, that came out wrong. Listen to my podfics, and want to, have me podfic a work, let me know. Just, like, comment under the post. Or actually, if there's just any fic recommendations you guys have for me. As always, remember to eat, drink, and sleep, and have a good rest of your day, night, or afternoon, and I will see you in the next one.